Welcome to I'm Tonight. We're diving into a classic Hercule Poirot mystery, woven in the grand tradition of Agatha Christie. Picture yourself in 1920s London, where secrets lurk in the shadows of a grand country estate. This is a tale of deception, locked doors, and brilliant deduction. So, settle in, my friends, and let's unravel the mystery of the killer from the Golden Tower. Oh, and do tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Chapter 1. Introduction and Setup. The autumn of 1927 draped London in a veil of mist, its cobbled streets glistening under the gaslights. As Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective, stepped off the 4:15 train at King's Cross Station. His polished shoes clicked against the platform, his moustache impeccably waxed, and his grey eyes twinkled with the anticipation of a new puzzle. In his gloved hand, he clutched a letter, its elegant script penned in jet-black ink, summoning him to Ashbourne Hall, a grand estate nestled in the rolling hills of Kent. The letter, signed by Sir Reginald Ashbourne, spoke of a matter most delicate and urgent, but offered no further clue. Poirot, ever drawn to the enigmatic workings of the human mind, had accepted the invitation with a flourish. His curiosity as sharp as the crease in his tailored suit. The journey to Kent was a study in contrasts. The clamour of London's smoky stations gave way to the serene patchwork of hedgerows and orchards. As the hired car wound through narrow lanes, Poirot gazed out at the countryside, his thoughts drifting to the task ahead. Sir Reginald, a retired diplomat of some renown, was known for his collection of rare manuscripts and his iron grip on his family's affairs. Why then this summons? Was it a family squabble, a theft, or something darker? Poirot's little grey cells hummed, eager for the challenge. Ashbourne Hall emerged from the mist like a vision from a bygone era. Its Georgian facade, crafted from honey-coloured stone, glowed faintly under the weak October sun. Twin towers flanked the main house, but it was the central spire, the Golden Tower, that caught Poirot's eye. Topped with a gilded weather vane shaped like a phoenix, it rose above the estate, a silent sentinel over manicured gardens and gravel paths. The air carried the scent of damp leaves and wood smoke, and Poirot, stepping from the car, adjusted his scarf against the evening chill. At the entrance, he was met by Mr. Grayson, the butler, a man whose stoic demeanour and weathered face suggested a lifetime of discretion. Grayson's eyes, pale as frost, assessed Poirot briefly before he bowed. "Monsieur Poirot, Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room," he said, his voice low and precise. The grand oak doors swung open, revealing a hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Ashbournes, their eyes following Poirot as he crossed the marble floor. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow, and the faint strains of a gramophone drifted from deeper within, the house. The drawing-room was a masterpiece of opulence, crimson velvet drapes, mahogany furniture, and a roaring fire that bathed the room in flickering light. Sir Reginald Ashbourne, a tall man with silver hair and a diplomat's poise, rose to greet Poirot. His handshake was firm, his smile cordial, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Monsieur Poirot, your reputation precedes you," he said, gesturing to a plush armchair. "I trust your journey was pleasant." "Most pleasant, Sir Reginald," Poirot replied, settling into the chair with the grace of a cat. "But I confess your letter has piqued my curiosity. A matter of delicacy, you say?" Sir Reginald nodded, pouring tea from a silver pot. "Tomorrow is my 60th birthday, and the house will be filled with guests for a grand celebration. Yet I fear something is amiss." He hesitated, his fingers tightening around his cup. "I cannot say more now. But I trust you will observe and advise. Will you stay?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Hercule Poirot does not refuse a puzzle, monsieur. I shall remain." As tea was served, the household began to assemble, drawn by the clink of porcelain and the promise of introductions. First came Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, Sir Reginald's second wife, a former actress whose beauty was undimmed by her 40 years. Her auburn hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her emerald gown shimmered as she moved. Her smile was radiant, but Poirot noted a calculated edge to her charm, as if every gesture were rehearsed. "Monsieur Poirot, how delightful," she purred, extending a gloved hand. "I've heard you unravel mysteries as easily as one might a skein of silk." Next was Clara Ashbourne, Sir Reginald's daughter from his first marriage. A botanist by passion, Clara was a study in restraint, her dark hair pulled into a severe bun and her grey eyes wary. She clutched a notebook, its pages filled with sketches of exotic plants, and offered Poirot a curt nod. "Father speaks highly of you," she said, her voice cool. "I hope you find our little gathering illuminating." Edward Langley, Sir Reginald's nephew, sauntered in with the easy grace of a man accustomed to charming his way through life. His tailored suit was slightly rumpled, and his boyish grin couldn't mask the shadows under his eyes. "Poirot, is it?" he said, shaking hands with a touch too much enthusiasm. "Heard you're the chap who catches the clever ones. Well, you'll find no rogues here, I wager." His laugh was loud, but Poirot caught the nervous twitch of his cufflinks. Dr. Victor Hargrove, the family physician, entered next, his dour expression at odds with the festive atmosphere. His gaunt frame and thinning hair gave him a spectral air, and his handshake was cold. "I'm merely here to ensure Sir Reginald's health," he muttered, though his eyes darted toward Lady Beatrice with a flicker of something unreadable. Finally, Miss Evelyn Warwick, Sir Reginald's private secretary, glided into the room. A woman in her late 20s, she was sharp-witted and composed, her spectacles glinting as she offered Poirot a polite smile. "I manage Sir Reginald's correspondence and manuscripts," she explained, her voice crisp. "If you need anything, monsieur, I'm at your service." As the group settled, Poirot observed the undercurrents of tension. Clara avoided Lady Beatrice's gaze, her fingers tightening on her notebook. Edward fidgeted, his eyes flitting to the decanter of brandy on the sideboard. Dr. Hargrove sat stiffly, his hands folded as if guarding a secret. Miss Warwick's calm was almost too perfect, her pen tapping lightly against a ledger. Sir Reginald, however, was the picture of joviality, regaling Poirot with tales of his diplomatic triumphs in Constantinople and Vienna. Yet, as he spoke of a rare manuscript recently acquired, a 15th-century treatise on alchemy, his voice faltered, and he glanced toward the Golden Tower, visible through the window. Dinner was announced, a sumptuous affair of roast pheasant and claret, served in a dining room adorned with tapestries. Poirot, seated beside Sir Reginald, noted the patriarch's habit of checking his pocket watch, as if time itself were a conspirator. Lady Beatrice entertained with stories of her theatrical days, her laughter bright but brittle. Clara spoke little, her attention fixed on a sprig of parsley, which she examined as if it held the secrets of the universe. Edward, flushed with wine, boasted of his latest venture in London, though his bravado rang hollow. Dr. Hargrove ate sparingly, his eyes scanning the table, while Miss Warwick took meticulous notes on the guest list for tomorrow's celebration. As the meal drew to a close, Sir Reginald leaned toward Poirot, his voice low. "Tomorrow, After the festivities, we shall speak in private, in the Golden Tower. There, I will reveal all." Poirot nodded, his mind already cataloguing the evening's observations. The strained smiles, the guarded glances, the faint scent of perfume that clung to Lady Beatrice, and the curious absence of Grayson, who had vanished after serving the soup. The guests retired to their rooms, the house settling into an uneasy silence. Poirot, in his guest suite, stood at the window, gazing at the Golden Tower. Its gilded weather vane caught the moonlight, a beacon in the darkness. He smoothed his moustache, his thoughts a tapestry of suspicion. "The serpent in the garden," he murmured, recalling Sir Reginald's cryptic letter. "But who is the serpent, and where lies the garden?" As the clock struck 11, a distant owl hooted, and the estate seemed to hold its breath. Poirot closed his curtains, his little grey cells alight with the promise of a mystery yet to unfold. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. The morning of Sir Reginald Ashbourne's 60th birthday dawned grey and heavy. The mist clinging to the rolling hills Kent like a shroud. Hercule Poirot, ever meticulous in his morning routine, was adjusting his tie in his guest suite at Ashbourne Hall when a scream shattered the silence. It was a raw, piercing sound, rising from the heart of the estate and echoing off the honey-coloured stone walls. Poirot's grey eyes narrowed, his moustache twitching as he grabbed his cane and hurried towards the source. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floors of the grand hall, the portraits of stern-faced Ashbournes seeming to watch his every step. The scream had come from the Golden Tower, the central spire of Ashbourne Hall, its gilded weather vane glinting dully through the fog. As Poirot reached the tower's base, he found the household in disarray, gathered at the foot of the narrow staircase that spiralled upward. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, her auburn hair dishevelled and her emerald dressing gown clutched tightly, stood trembling, her eyes wide with horror. Clara Ashbourne, Sir Reginald's daughter, gripped the banister, her face pale as the mist outside. Edward Langley, the nephew, hovered at the edge of the group, his usual charm replaced by a nervous fidgeting of his cufflinks. Dr. Victor Hargrove, the family physician, stood apart, his gaunt features set in a grim mask. Miss Evelyn Warwick, the private secretary, clutched a ledger, her spectacles glinting as she whispered to the butler, Mr. Grayson, whose stoic demeanour had cracked, revealing a flicker of unease. "What has happened, mes amis?" Poirot asked, his voice calm but commanding attention. "It's father," Clara choked out, her voice trembling. He's dead." Poirot's eyes sharpened as he ascended the staircase, the household trailing behind like reluctant shadows. The Golden Tower's study, Sir Reginald's private sanctum, was at the top, accessible only by this single spiral stair. The oak door, heavy and banded with iron, stood ajar, a stark contrast to Grayson's insistence that it had been locked all night. Poirot pushed it open and stepped into the room, his senses alert. Sir Reginald Ashbourne lay slumped over his mahogany desk, his silver hair matted with blood. A heavy bronze paperweight, shaped like a lion's head, lay beside him, its base stained crimson. The room was a treasure trove of rare manuscripts, their leather bindings gleaming in the dim light of a single lamp. Shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient tomes and neatly stacked papers. A crystal decanter of brandy sat on a sideboard, a glass beside it overturned, its contents pooling on the Persian rug. The air held a faint floral scent, perfume, perhaps, and Poirot's nose twitched as he catalogued it. He knelt beside the body, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the scene. Sir Reginald's skull was crushed, the wound suggesting a single brutal blow. Yet the room was locked from the inside. Poirot examined the door. The key was in Sir Reginald's pocket, and the lock showed no signs of tampering. The only window, a narrow pane of leaded glass 50 feet above the ground, was bolted shut, its rusted latch untouched. The dew-soaked grass below, visible through the window, bore no footprints, an impossible crime. Inspector Japp, summoned from Scotland Yard, arrived within the hour, his familiar bulldog face set in a scowl. "Blimey, Poirot, you've landed in it this time," he muttered, surveying the scene. "Locked room, dead toff, and a house full of suspects. What's your take?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "It is a puzzle most intricate, mon ami, but Hercule Poirot shall unravel it." He began his examination, noting every detail. The spilled brandy suggested a struggle, or perhaps surprise. A half-finished letter lay beneath Sir Reginald's hand, written in his elegant script and addressed to Poirot himself. It read, "Beware the serpent in the garden." The words sent a shiver through the room, and Lady Beatrice stifled a sob. Poirot folded the letter carefully, his mind racing. A serpent? A metaphor? Or something more literal? The household's reactions revealed a web of motives. Lady Beatrice, as Sir Reginald's second wife, stood to inherit the bulk of the estate, a fortune in land and manuscripts. Her tears seemed genuine, but Poirot noted her quick glance toward the safe in the corner, its door slightly ajar. Clara, the botanist's daughter, had resented her father's remarriage, believing it diminished her own inheritance. Her fingers clutched her notebook, and Poirot wondered if her passion for exotic plants hid a darker purpose. Edward Langley, the debt-ridden nephew, had been pressed by Sir Reginald to repay thousands in loans, a motive for desperation. Dr. Hargrove, recently dismissed for reasons Sir Reginald had kept private, stood to lose his livelihood and reputation. Miss Warwick, privy to Sir Reginald's diplomatic secrets, might have feared exposure of some indiscretion. Even Grayson, the loyal butler, knew every corner of the estate, perhaps too well. Poirot circled the room, his cane tapping softly. The manuscripts appeared untouched, their value immense but undisturbed. The safe, however, contained only a few papers, none of obvious significance. Poirot's gaze lingered on the rug, where a single blonde hair lay, stark against the crimson fibres. He plucked it up with tweezers, noting that none of the women, Lady Beatrice with her auburn locks, Clara with her dark bun, or Evelyn with her mousy brown hair, were blonde. A clue or a distraction? Japp's men searched the tower's base, finding no signs of forced entry. Grayson swore he had stood guard at the staircase all night, his post at the tower's only entrance unbroken. "I heard nothing, sir," he said, his voice steady but his eyes avoiding Poirot's. "The door was locked, and I had the only other key." Poirot tested the window's bolt, confirming its rusted state. He examined the walls, tapping for hidden panels, but found only solid stone. The spiral staircase, narrow and winding, showed no signs of recent use, its steps coated in a fine layer of dust. Yet the perfume lingered, faint but persistent, a floral note that Poirot could not place. He closed his eyes, letting his senses guide him. The scent was not Lady Beatrice's rosewater, nor Clara's herbal tinctures. A mystery within a mystery. The household was questioned briefly. Lady Beatrice claimed she had retired early, overwhelmed by party preparations, but no one could confirm her whereabouts. Clara said she was in the greenhouse until midnight, tending her nightshade plants. but the Gardners had gone home by then. Edward admitted to a late-night card game in town, returning at dawn, his alibi shaky. Dr. Hargrove insisted he was in his cottage, though his medical bag left in the hall contained a vial of sedative that piqued Poirot's interest. Miss Warwick said she was in her office, organising Sir Reginald's correspondence, but Grayson's nod seemed hesitant. The butler himself claimed unbroken vigilance, yet Poirot noted a faint tremor in his hands. Japp, frustrated, paced the study. "It's impossible, Poirot. No one could have got in or out. Are we dealing with a ghost?" Poirot smiled thinly. "Non, mon ami. A ghost does not wield a paperweight, nor leave perfume in the air. There is method here, and Hercule Poirot will find it." Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The mist hung heavy over Ashbourne Hall, cloaking the honey-coloured stone in a veil of secrecy, as Hercule Poirot stood at the base of the Golden Tower, his sharp grey eyes scanning the scene. The morning of Sir Reginald Ashbourne's 60th birthday had brought death instead of celebration, and the study at the tower's summit held the key to an impossible crime. Sir Reginald lay dead, his skull crushed, the room locked from within, and no trace of an intruder. Inspector Japp, pacing the gravel path below, muttered about ghosts, but Poirot's moustache twitched with the certainty that logic, not spectres, would solve this puzzle. Poirot began his investigation in the library, a cavernous room lined with leather-bound tomes and lit by tall windows that cast pale light on the oak-panelled walls. The household gathered reluctantly, their faces a gallery of grief, fear, and suspicion. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, her auburn hair now neatly pinned, sat with a handkerchief pressed to her lips, her emerald eyes darting toward the door. Clara Ashbourne, the botanist's daughter, clutched her notebook of plant sketches, her expression guarded. Edward Langley, the charming but debt-ridden nephew, leaned against a bookshelf, his fingers drumming nervously. Dr. Victor Hargrove, the dour physician, sat stiffly, his gaunt hands folded as if in prayer. Miss Evelyn Warwick, the private secretary, adjusted her spectacles, her ledger open on her lap. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face impassive, but his eyes flickering, with unease. "Monsieur Poirot," Japp said, clearing his throat, "these folks are ready to answer your questions. Let's get to the bottom of this." Poirot nodded, his cane tapping softly as he paced before the fireplace. "Mes amis, a tragedy has struck Ashbourne Hall. Sir Reginald was murdered in a room locked from within, a puzzle most curious. I require the truth, every detail, however small. Who will begin?" Lady Beatrice spoke first, her voice trembling but controlled. "I was in my room last night, preparing for the birthday celebration. The guest list, the menu, it was overwhelming. I retired early, around 10, and saw no one." Her alibi hung in the air, unverified, as no maid could confirm her presence. Poirot noted her manicured fingers twisting the handkerchief, a gesture too precise for genuine grief. Clara's voice was cool, almost defiant. "I was in the greenhouse until midnight, tending my nightshade plants. They require careful attention, especially the Atropa belladonna. No one saw me. The gardeners leave at dusk." Her grey eyes met Poirot's, unyielding, but her grip on the notebook betrayed a tremor. Poirot wondered what secrets those sketches concealed. Edward Langley flashed a weak smile, his boyish charm strained. "I was in town, playing cards at the Red Lion. Lost a bit, won a bit, back by dawn. Ask the barman, he'll vouch for me." His eyes flicked to Japp, who frowned, noting the vagueness of the alibi. Poirot observed Edward's rumpled suit, a sign of a night spent in haste. Dr. Hargrove's voice was low, almost a growl. I was in my cottage, a half-mile from the house. I had no reason to be near the tower. His medical bag, resting by his chair, caught Poirot's eye. A vial of sedative glinted within, its label smudged. Hargrove's gaze followed Poirot's, and he shifted uncomfortably. Miss Warwick's tone was crisp, efficient. I was in my office, organizing Sir Reginald's correspondence for the party. Invitations, replies, his manuscript catalogue. I was there past 11. Mr. Grayson saw me when he brought tea. Grayson nodded, but Poirot caught a hesitation, a slight tightening of the butler's jaw. Grayson himself spoke last. I stood guard at the tower's entrance all night, as Sir Reginald instructed. The door was locked, and I held the second key. I heard nothing, saw nothing. His voice was steady, but Poirot noted a faint sheen of sweat on his brow, unusual for so composed a man. The interviews complete, Poirot dismissed the household, save for Japp, and turned his attention to the Golden Tower. He climbed the spiral staircase, its stone steps worn smooth by centuries, and re-entered the study. The scene was unchanged. Sir Reginald's body had been removed, but the bloodied paperweight, spilled brandy, and half-finished letter remained. The letter's warning, "Beware the serpent in the garden," nagged at Poirot's mind. Was it a metaphor for betrayal, or a clue to the killer's identity? He examined the lock again, its mechanism pristine, untouched by picks or force. The window's rusted bolt held firm, and the grass below remained unmarked. Poirot tapped the walls, searching for hidden panels, and discovered a narrow alcove concealed behind a bookshelf. It led to a spiral staircase, smaller than the main one, but its steps were choked with cobwebs and dust, unused for years. A dead end, yet Poirot filed it away, his little grey cells humming. Returning to the study, he knelt by the rug where the single blonde hair still lay. He held it to the light, confirming it matched no one in the household. A wig, perhaps? A deliberate plant? The perfume lingered, faint but distinct, a floral note with a hint of jasmine. It was not Lady Beatrice's rosewater, nor Clara's herbal scents. Poirot pocketed the hair, his mind turning to the safe. Its door, slightly ajar, revealed only a few letters, none missing. The manuscripts, worth a fortune, were untouched. If theft was not the motive, what was? Japp's men returned from their search of the estate, presenting a bloodied handkerchief found in the rose garden, initialed E.L., Edward Langley. Edward, summoned, paled at the sight. "It's not mine, I swear," he protested. "Someone's trying to frame me." Japp's eyes narrowed, but Poirot waved a hand. "A handkerchief is easily placed, Inspector. Let us not rush to judgment." Poirot requested Sir Reginald's recent correspondence and financial records, which Miss Warwick provided with brisk efficiency. The letters revealed little. Invitations to the birthday gala, a note from a manuscript dealer, and a cryptic message from an unknown sender, initialed B. It read, "The truth will out, Reginald. Guard your secrets." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Was B Lady Beatrice, or another player in this drama? He ventured to the greenhouse, where Clara's nightshade plants thrived in orderly rows. The Atropa belladonna, with its deadly berries, caught his attention. "A curious choice, mademoiselle," Poirot said, meeting Clara's gaze. She shrugged. "They're for research, not poison. Father approved." Her tone was defiant, but her eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting an interruption. Back in the library, Poirot tested the tower's acoustics, shouting from the study while Japp listened below. The sound was muffled, inaudible outside the thick stone walls. A cry for help would have gone unheard, confirming Grayson's claim. Yet Poirot's mind lingered on the perfume, the hair, and the letter. He paced the gardens, the mist curling around his ankles, and muttered, "The little grey cells! They demand order! There is a pattern here, but it eludes me." Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The fog had thickened around Ashbourne Hall, wrapping the golden-hued stone in a ghostly embrace as Hercule Poirot stood in the library, his sharp grey eyes scanning the papers strewn across a mahogany table. The murder of Sir Reginald Ashbourne in the locked study of the Golden Tower remained a puzzle, its pieces scattered among the household's guarded faces and half-truths. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face creased with frustration, hovered nearby, muttering about the bloodied handkerchief initialed E.L. found in the rose garden. Poirot, however, was not so easily swayed by such an obvious clue. "A handkerchief, mon ami, is a prop in this drama," he said, tapping his cane. "We must seek the subtle, not the blatant." Poirot turned to Sir Reginald's correspondence, provided by Miss Evelyn Warwick, the private secretary whose efficiency bordered on uncanny. Among the letters was a will, its ink fresh, stating that Clara Ashbourne, Sir Reginald's daughter, would lose her inheritance if she married without his consent. Poirot's moustache twitched as he noted Clara's motive. Her rumoured engagement to a botanist colleague, whispered about by the maids, could have driven her to desperation. "A father's control, mademoiselle, is a heavy chain," he murmured, filing the thought away. Another document caught his eye. A letter from a creditor demanding Edward Langley repay $5,000, a sum Sir Reginald had refused to cover. Edward's debts were no secret, but the letter's tone, threatening ruin, suggested urgency. Poirot glanced at Japp, who was examining the handkerchief. "This E.L. is too convenient, Inspector. A killer does not leave such a calling card unless they wish to mislead." Miss Warwick's ledger revealed more. Large sums paid to an unknown party, initialed B, Lady Beatrice perhaps? Or another B lurking in the shadows? Poirot requested the ledger's full records, noting Warwick's slight hesitation before she complied. Her spectacles glinted as she handed over the pages, her composure unshaken but her fingers lingering on the binding. Poirot ventured to the greenhouse, where Clara tended her deadly nightshade plants. The air was humid, thick with the scent of earth and herbs. Among the Atrapa belladonna, he found a torn page from a manuscript, its text detailing the use of nightshade as a poison. "Research, you say, mademoiselle?" Poirot asked, holding up the page. Clara's grey eyes flashed. "It's from my studies, nothing more. Father encouraged my work." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she pruned a leaf. Poirot pocketed the page, suspecting it was either a vital clue or a carefully placed distraction. In the gardens, a groundskeeper approached, his cap twisted nervously in his hands. "I saw Summit last night, sir," he whispered. "A cloaked figure near the tower, round midnight. Couldn't see their face, but they moved quick, like they didn't want to be seen." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The description was vague, almost theatrical. A figure in a cloak felt like a trope from a penny dreadful. Yet he thanked the man, noting the tower's proximity to the rose garden where the handkerchief was found. Returning to the Golden Tower, Poirot tested the study's acoustics again, shouting while Japp stood at the base. The thick stone walls swallowed the sound, confirming that a cry from Sir Reginald would have gone unheard. He re-examined the room, his gloved hands tracing the desk where the bloodied paperweight lay, the spilled brandy glass, the half-finished letter, "Beware the serpent in the garden," and the faint jasmine perfume lingered in his mind. The blonde hair, still an anomaly, sat in a vial in his pocket. He tapped the walls again, finding no new panels, but noticed a faint scratch on the window's rusted bolt, barely visible, a tool mark or natural wear. He filed it away. A maid polishing silver in the hall mentioned a dropped earring found near the tower's staircase, encrusted with paste diamonds. Poirot examined it. Gaudy, theatrical, reminiscent of Lady Beatrice's stage days. When confronted, she laughed, her auburn hair catching the light. "Mine, hardly, monsieur. I left such trinkets behind with the footlights." Her denial was swift, but Poirot noted her quick glance toward Edward, who flushed and looked away. A lover's quarrel, or a coordinated lie? Japp's men searched the estate further, finding a gardener's glove near the tower, stained with what appeared to be blood. Chemical tests were inconclusive, but the glove was too large for Clara's hands and too worn for Edward's polished tastes. Dr. Hargrove, questioned about his medical bag's sedative, admitted it was for his insomnia, not murder. "I've no reason to harm Sir Reginald," he growled, though his eyes avoided Poirot's. The glove, like the handkerchief, felt planted, another thread in a tapestry of misdirection. Poirot sat in the library, sifting through the clues. The will gave Clara motive, the creditor's letter pointed to Edward, and the ledger's B suggested Lady Beatrice or another. The manuscript page implicated Clara's botanical expertise, but its discovery was too neat. The cloaked figure, the earring, the glove, all screamed distraction, yet each demanded scrutiny. The perfume, jasmine and elusive, tugged at Poirot's memory, but he could not place it. He requested Grayson's account of the night again, and the butler reiterated his vigilance at the tower's entrance. "No one passed me, sir," he said, but his hands clasped tightly, betraying tension. A new clue emerged. A groundskeeper's log noted a delivery of rare manuscript paper to Sir Reginald's study days before, handled by Miss Warwick. Poirot examined the study's desk, finding a sheet of that paper, its edge torn, matching the poison manuscript's texture. Was Warwick planting evidence, or was the manuscript her own work, stolen from Sir Reginald? Her knowledge of his affairs made her a linchpin, yet her calm demeanour revealed nothing. Poirot walked the gardens, the Rive d'Astreux, mist curling around the rose bushes. The bloodied handkerchief initialed E.L. was a crude attempt to frame Edward, but who had placed it? The cloaked figure, seen by a single witness, felt like a ghost story, yet the groundskeeper's fear was real. The earring tied to Lady Beatrice's past suggested a personal vendetta, but her denial was plausible. The glove, the manuscript page, the ledger's B, each clue was a thread, but the pattern remained elusive. He returned to the tower, climbing to the study once more. The scratch on the window's bolt nagged at him. He examined it under a magnifying glass, noting its fresh edge. A tool, perhaps, but the window was too high, the bolt too rusted. He tapped the floor, searching for hollow spots, and found none. The hidden staircase, choked with cobwebs, remained unused. Yet the perfume lingered, a whisper of jasmine that seemed to mock him. He closed his eyes, letting his little grey cells work. "The serpent in the garden," he murmured. "It hides, but it leaves traces." Japp, exasperated, joined him. "Poirot, we've got a handkerchief, a glove, an earring and a torn page, and none of it adds up. Are we chasing shadows?" Poirot smiled thinly. "Non, mon ami. Shadows have substance if one knows where to look. The truth is here, in the details." Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The late afternoon sun struggled through the fog enveloping Ashbourne Hall, casting long shadows across the honey-coloured stone, as Hercule Poirot paced the rose garden, his cane sinking slightly into the damp earth. The murder of Sir Reginald Ashbourne in the locked study of the Golden Tower remained an enigma. Its pieces, blonde hair, jasmine perfume, a bloodied handkerchief, taunting his little grey cells. The household's motives were clear. Lady Beatrice's inheritance, Clara's disinheritance, Edward's debts, Dr. Hargrove's dismissal, Miss Warwick's secrets, Grayson's vigilance. Yet the clues, some true, some false, formed a labyrinth of deception. Poirot's grey eyes gleamed with determination. "The serpent in the garden," he murmured. "It coils tighter, but I shall seize it." Inspector Japp, his patience fraying, joined Poirot in the garden, clutching a telegram from Scotland Yard. "No progress on the handkerchief's blood, Poirot," he grumbled. "And that earring, paste diamonds, cheap as chips. We're chasing our tails." Poirot smiled thinly. "Non, mon ami. The tail leads to the snake, if one follows with care." Poirot's investigation deepened as he returned to the Golden Tower, climbing the spiral staircase to the study. The bloodied paperweight, spilled brandy, and cryptic letter, "Beware the serpent in the garden," remained untouched, preserved for evidence. He re-examined the safe, its door still ajar, and discovered a hidden compartment beneath a false bottom. Inside was a single document, a contract for the sale of a rare manuscript, a whodunit 14th century illuminated Book of Hours, valued at $10,000. The buyer's name was obscured, but the contract was dated 2 days before the murder. Theft, then, was a possible motive, but why leave the manuscripts untouched? Poirot summoned Miss Warwick, whose encyclopedic knowledge of Sir Reginald's collection made her indispensable. "This contract, mademoiselle," he said, holding up the document. "You catalogued his manuscripts. Was this Book of Hours accounted for?" Warwick's spectacles glinted as she scanned the paper. "It's in the study, monsieur. 3rd shelf, blue binding." Poirot checked. The manuscript was there, its gold leaf gleaming. No theft, then, but the contract suggested a deal gone wrong. Warwick's composure faltered, her fingers brushing her ledger. "Sir Reginald was secretive about his sales," she said. "I only recorded what he allowed." A maid, clearing tea trays in the hall, whispered to Poirot of an argument she'd overheard the night before the murder. "Sir Reginald and Dr. Hargrove in the library," she said, eyes wide. Something about a betrayal and experiments. The doctor was furious. Poirot confronted Hargrove, whose gaunt face tightened. "A professional disagreement," he snapped. "Sir Reginald questioned my methods, nothing more." Yet Poirot's inquiries at Scotland Yard revealed a darker truth. Hargrove had been struck off the medical register a decade ago for unethical experiments involving sedatives. Had Sir Reginald uncovered a new indiscretion, threatening exposure? Clara Ashbourne's greenhouse offered another thread. Poirot found her there, pruning her nightshade plants with surgical precision. He produced the torn manuscript page about poisons, found among her plants. "Mademoiselle, this page suggests knowledge of deadly arts. Care to explain?" Clara's grey eyes flashed. "I told you it's research. But I did enter the study that night. I needed a letter father kept, one that could ruin my engagement. He was alive when I left, I swear." Her confession hung heavy, but her alibi remained unverified. The nightshade's presence, so close to a murder, was too convenient. Edward Langley's story unravelled next. Confronted about his debts, he admitted forging Sir Reginald's signature on a loan document discovered in the ledger. "I was desperate," he stammered, his boyish charm gone. "But murder? Never." Poirot noted his flushed cheeks, his eyes darting to Lady Beatrice, who sat nearby, her expression unreadable. A footman then revealed a damning detail. He'd seen Lady Beatrice near the Tower at 11 p.m., not in her room as claimed. When questioned, she laughed, her auburn hair catching the light. "A midnight stroll, monsieur. The fog was enchanting." Her lie was smooth, but Poirot's gaze lingered on her, sensing a deeper game. A startling discovery came from the tower itself. Poirot, re-examining the study, noticed a small vent behind a bookshelf, concealed by a decorative grille. It was too narrow for a person, but large enough for air, or something else, to pass through. He traced its path, finding it connected to a disused pneumatic tube system, a relic of the estate's Victorian days. The tube led to the basement, accessible from Miss Warwick's office. Dust in the vent was disturbed, suggesting recent use. Could a poison, a sound, or a message have been delivered this way? The jasmine perfume, still lingering, seemed strongest near the vent. Poirot's mind raced. Was this the key to the locked room? Grayson, the butler, provided another twist. In a private moment, he confided to Poirot that Sir Reginald was writing a memoir, stored in the study, exposing a diplomatic scandal from his Constantinople days. "He feared it would ruin someone here," Grayson said, his voice low. "He kept it locked in the safe." Poirot checked. The memoir was missing, its absence unnoticed in the initial search. Had the killer taken it to silence a secret? Warwick, with her access to the safe, became a focal point, but her calm demeanour revealed nothing. Poirot tested the vent's possibilities, sending a paper dart through the tube from the basement. It emerged in the study, landing near the desk. The mechanism was ingenious, a forgotten system that could deliver a small object or a deadly substance. He recalled Clara's nightshade, Hargrove's sedative, and the perfume's jasmine note. Was the murder a poisoning mistaken for a blow? The paperweight's blood seemed too theatrical, a stage prop in this drama. A final twist came from the groundskeeper, who admitted his cloaked figure story was embellished, prompted by a bribe from Edward to divert suspicion. Edward, cornered, confessed to the bribe, but swore he only wanted to protect his reputation, not frame anyone. The handkerchief, the earring, the glove, all were red herrings, but the vent and the memoir felt like truth. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, piecing together timelines. Clara's confession, Lady Beatrice's lie, Hargrove's past, Warwick's access, Edward's forgery, Grayson's revelation. Each was a thread, but the pattern was incomplete. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The evening cast a sombre pall over Ashbourne Hall, the fog curling around the honey-coloured stone like a conspirator, as Hercule Poirot gathered the household in the Golden Tower's study. The room, once Sir Reginald Ashbourne's sanctum, was now a stage for revelation. The bloodied bronze paperweight, the spilled brandy glass, and the cryptic letter, "Beware the serpent in the garden," sat untouched, silent witnesses to the crime. The household stood in a tense semicircle. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, her auburn hair glowing in the lamplight. Clara Ashbourne, clutching her notebook. Edward Langley, fidgeting with his cufflinks. Dr. Victor Hargrove, his gaunt face grim, Miss Evelyn Warwick, her spectacles glinting, and Mr. Grayson, the butler, his weathered hands clasped tightly. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face expectant, leaned against the doorframe, watching Poirot with a mix of skepticism and hope. "Monsieur Poirot," Japp said, breaking the silence, "you've kept us waiting. Have you cracked this locked-room puzzle? Or are we still chasing ghosts?" Poirot's grey eyes twinkled as he smoothed his moustache. "Non, mon ami, there are no ghosts here. Only a mind most cunning, weaving a tapestry of deception. But Hercule Poirot sees the pattern, and now the serpent in the garden shall be revealed." He began, his voice slow and deliberate, commanding the room's attention. Sir Reginald Ashbourne was murdered in this study, locked from within, with no sign of entry or exit. A blow to the skull, we thought, from this paperweight. Yet the clues, the blonde hair, the jasmine perfume, the spilled brandy, the letter, pointed to a deeper truth. This was no ordinary murder, but a crime of precision, executed through an ingenious method. Poirot paced before the desk, his cane tapping softly. "Let us consider the clues. The blonde hair, found on the rug, matched no one in this household. A wig, perhaps, but why? The handkerchief initialed E.L., suggested Monsieur Langley, but it was too obvious, a red herring. The earring, with its paste diamonds, pointed to Madame Beatrice's theatrical past, yet she denied it. The torn manuscript page, detailing nightshade poison, implicated Mademoiselle Clara, but it was too neatly placed. The gardener's glove, the creditor's letter, the ledger's mysterious B, all distractions designed to obscure the truth. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. But one clue stood apart, the faint scent of jasmine lingering in this study, strongest near a hidden vent behind the bookshelf. This vent, mes amis, is part of an old pneumatic tube system, a relic of the estate's Victorian days, connecting the study to the basement. It was too small for a person, but large enough for a deadly delivery. The household stirred, eyes darting to the bookshelf. Poirot continued, his voice rising. The method was clever. A poisoned dart, laced with Atropa belladonna from Mademoiselle Clara's greenhouse, was sent through the tube. It struck Sir Reginald, causing a fatal seizure, mistaken for a blow to the head. The paperweight was placed to mislead, its blood a theatrical touch. The killer, knowing the estate's secrets, used the tube to commit an impossible crime. Japp's jaw dropped. A dart? Through a tube? Poirot, that's mad. "No, Inspector, it is brilliant," Poirot replied. "And the killer is among us. It is you, Mademoiselle Evelyn Warwick." A gasp rippled through the room. Warwick's spectacles glinted as she stepped back, her face pale but composed. "Monsieur Poirot, that's absurd. I was in my office, organizing papers. Grayson saw me." Poirot raised a hand. "Permit me to explain. Mademoiselle Warwick, you were Sir Reginald's secretary, privy to his manuscripts, his correspondence, his secrets. You knew of the pneumatic tube used in his diplomatic days to send sensitive messages. You had access to the basement, where the tube's other end lies, just steps from your office. The jasmine perfume, traced to a bottle in your room, betrayed you. The blonde hair, a wig worn to plant a false clue, discarded after the crime." Warwick's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Poirot pressed on. The motive was clear. Sir Reginald was writing a memoir, hidden in the safe, exposing a diplomatic scandal from his time in Constantinople. You, mademoiselle, were involved, not as a secretary, but as a spy, selling secrets to a foreign power. Sir Reginald discovered this, and his memoir would have ruined you. You killed him to silence him, stealing the memoir to cover your tracks. Clara's voice broke the silence. "But the locked door, monsieur! How did she do it?" Poirot smiled. The door was irrelevant. The dart was sent through the tube, striking Sir Reginald as he wrote. He collapsed, and you, Mademoiselle Warwick, entered later, using the key you had access to as his secretary. You placed the paperweight, spilled the brandy, and locked the door, creating the illusion of an impossible crime. The dust in the vent was disturbed. The perfume lingered, small traces, but enough for Hercule Poirot. Japp stepped forward. "What about the other clues? The handkerchief, the earring?" "Red herrings all," Poirot said. "The handkerchief was planted to frame Monsieur Langley, whose debts made him an easy target. The earring, a nod to Madame Beatrice's past, was meant to confuse. The manuscript page, torn from Mademoiselle Clara's research, was a clever touch to cast suspicion. But the memoir's absence and the vent's use revealed the truth. Mademoiselle Warwick, you underestimated the little grey cells." Warwick's composure cracked, her voice sharp. "You have no proof, monsieur. A dart? A tube? It's fantasy." Poirot gestured to the bookshelf, where Japp's men had dismantled the grill. From the vent, they retrieved a small metal dart, its tip stained with a dark residue. "This, mademoiselle, was sent for analysis. It carries nightshade poison, and its size fits the tube perfectly. Your perfume bottle, found in your room, matches the scent here. The memoir, I suspect, is hidden in your office, awaiting destruction." Warwick's shoulders slumped, her spectacles slipping down her nose. "He would have destroyed me," she whispered. "Those secrets, they were my past, but he wouldn't let them stay buried." Her confession spilled forth. She had used the tube, a system she'd discovered while cataloguing Sir Reginald's papers, to deliver the dart. She had entered the study afterward, staging the scene to mislead. The memoir, she admitted, was burned in her office fireplace, its ashes scattered. Japp clapped handcuffs on her, his face grim. "You're nicked, Miss Warwick. Poirot, you've done it again." The household stood in stunned silence. Lady Beatrice's eyes brimmed with tears. Whether for Sir Reginald or relief, Poirot could not tell. Clara clutched her notebook, her face a mix of shock and gratitude. Edward, pale, muttered about reform. Hargrove's dour expression softened, perhaps relieved to be cleared. Grayson, ever stoic, bowed slightly to Poirot, a gesture of respect. Poirot addressed the room. "The serpent in the garden was greed and fear, mes amis. Mademoiselle Warwick sought to protect her past, but the truth cannot be silenced. Hercule Poirot has brought it to light." As Japp led Warwick away, Poirot lingered in the study, the fog pressing against the window. The phoenix weather vane atop the golden tower gleamed faintly, a symbol of renewal. The clues, the hair, the perfume, the vent, had formed a pattern, and his little grey cells had prevailed. "The mind of the killer is a maze," he murmured, "but order and method will always find the way." Chapter 7. Justice Served. The evening sky over Ashbourne Hall was a canvas of deep indigo, the fog thinning to reveal a scattering of stars. As Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his polished shoes gleaming on the marble floor. The revelation of Miss Evelyn Warwick's guilt had left the household in a state of stunned quietude. The echoes of her confession still lingering like the faint jasmine perfume that had betrayed her. The golden tower, its phoenix weather vane catching the moonlight, stood silent, no longer a sentinel of secrets, but a monument to truth unveiled. Poirot's little grey cells, having navigated the labyrinth of clues, blonde hair, bloodied handkerchief, hidden vent, now rested, satisfied with the order restored. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face softened by relief, oversaw the final formalities, as Evelyn Warwick, her spectacles glinting defiantly, was led from the study in handcuffs. The household gathered in the drawing room, its crimson drapes and roaring fire a stark contrast to the chill of the truth. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon, sat with a handkerchief pressed to her lips, her emerald eyes reflecting both sorrow and liberation. Clara Ashbourne, clutching her notebook of botanical sketches, stood by the window, her grey eyes fixed on the gardens beyond. Edward Langley, his boyish charm dimmed, leaned against the mantelpiece, his fingers still for once. Dr. Victor Hargrove, his gaunt frame less rigid, sat with his medical bag at his feet as if reclaiming his place. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face composed, but his eyes betraying a flicker of gratitude. Poirot, his cane resting lightly in his hand, addressed the assembly, his voice warm yet precise. Mes amis, the tragedy of Sir Reginald Ashbourne has been resolved. The icy serpent in the garden, Mademoiselle Warwick, sought to bury her past, but the truth, it cannot be silenced. Hercule Poirot has brought it to light, and now we reflect on justice. He turned to Japp, who nodded gruffly. Miss Warwick's confessed to everything, Poirot. The dart, the poison, the memoir. She spilled it all. She's off to face the courts, and I'd wager a long stretch in Holloway. Japp held up the small metal dart, retrieved from the pneumatic tube's vent, its tip still stained with nightshade residue. Clever trick, that tube. Never would have thought of it without you. Poirot inclined his head. The method was ingenious, mon ami, but the mind of the killer is no match for order and method. Let us review, for clarity. He paced before the fire, his grey eyes gleaming. Sir Reginald was struck by a poisoned dart, delivered through the pneumatic tube from the basement to the study. The dart, laced with a troppa belladonna from Mademoiselle Clara's greenhouse, caused a fatal seizure, mistaken for a blow to the skull. The bronze paperweight, stained with blood, was a deception, placed to mislead. The locked door, the rusted window bolt, these were irrelevant, for the tube was the killer's path. Lady Beatrice's voice trembled. But why, Monsieur Poirot? Why did Evelyn do it? Poirot's gaze softened. Madame, Mademoiselle Warwick was a spy in Sir Reginald's diplomatic days, selling secrets to a foreign power. His memoir, hidden in the safe, would have exposed her, ruining her life. She used her knowledge of the estate's old tube system, discovered while cataloguing his manuscripts, to deliver the dart. She entered the study later, using her access to Sir Reginald's key to stage the scene, spilling the brandy, placing the paperweight, planting the blonde hair from a wig to confuse us. Clara stepped forward, her notebook clutched tightly. The nightshade. It was stolen from my greenhouse? Oui, mademoiselle, Poirot replied. The killer chose your plants to cast suspicion, just as the handkerchief initialed EL was meant to implicate Monsieur Langley, and the paste diamond earring pointed to Madame Beatrice's past. These were red herrings, designed to obscure the truth. Edward, his face pale, spoke up. I swear, I didn't know about the handkerchief. I was a fool with my debts, but murder? Never. Poirot nodded. Your debts made you a target, Monsieur Langley, but your heart was not in this crime. Nor was Madame Beatrice's, whose midnight stroll was innocent, if ill-timed. Dr. Hargrove's past indiscretions, Mademoiselle Clara's disinheritance, Monsieur Grayson's vigilance, all were threads in the killer's tapestry of misdirection. Grayson bowed slightly. You saw through it all, sir. Sir Reginald would be proud. Poirot's moustache twitched. He was a man of secrets, Monsieur Grayson, but also of trust. His warning, beware the Ubat serpent in the garden, was his final gift to us, pointing to the betrayer in his midst. Japp cleared his throat. "The memoir's gone. Burned to ashes in Warwick's office, she says. But her confession's enough for a conviction. The courts'll sort the rest." The household absorbed the truth, their faces a mix of relief and sorrow. Lady Beatrice, now the estate's heiress, spoke softly. "I loved Reginald, despite our differences. I'll honour his legacy, perhaps return to the stage to fund the estate's upkeep." Her eyes held a new resolve, and Poirot noted the sincerity beneath her theatrical charm. Clara approached Poirot, her voice low. "I was wrong to sneak into the study for that letter. But thank you, monsieur, for clearing my name. I'll marry my botanist, and father's will won't stop me." Her grey eyes softened, a rare warmth breaking through her reserve. Edward, chastened, straightened. "No more gambling, I swear it. I'll work to repay my debts, make Uncle Reginald proud." His boyish grin returned, tentative but genuine. Dr. Hargrove, his dour demeanour eased, nodded to Poirot. "You've spared me unjust suspicion, monsieur. I'll serve this family honestly from now on." His medical bag, once a source of doubt, now seemed a symbol of redemption. Grayson, ever the butler, offered a rare smile. "The house will heal, sir. You've brought us peace." Poirot surveyed the room, his heart warmed by their resolve. "The human spirit, mes amis, it rises from tragedy. Ashbourne Hall will endure, as will the memory of Sir Reginald." As the household dispersed, Poirot lingered in the study, the fog outside now a faint mist. He examined the vent once more, its grille removed to reveal the tube's clever path. The jasmine perfume had faded, a ghost of the crime now laid to rest. He pocketed the blonde hair's vial, a memento of the puzzle solved. The manuscripts, untouched, gleamed on their shelves, a testament to Sir Reginald's legacy. Japp joined him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "You're a marvel, Poirot. A dart through a tube. I'd have locked up Langley and called it a day." Poirot chuckled. "The obvious is rarely the truth, mon ami. The little grey cells, they see what others miss." As night fell, Poirot stepped into the gardens, the air crisp and clear. The golden tower loomed above, its weather vane a phoenix reborn in the starlight. He thought of Sir Reginald's letter, its warning now fulfilled. The serpent was caught, the garden cleansed. He adjusted his scarf, his mind already turning to the next mystery. For the world was full of puzzles, and Hercule Poirot was ever their master. The estate settled into a gentle quiet, the tension of the past days dissolving like the fog. The roses, damp with dew, glowed in the moonlight, and the distant hoot of an owl marked the return of peace. Poirot walked the gravel path, his cane tapping a steady rhythm, his heart light with the satisfaction of justice served. Chapter 8. Echoes of the Past. The morning sun pierced the last remnants of fog around Ashbourne Hall, bathing the honey-coloured stone in a golden glow that seemed to promise renewal. Hercule Poirot stood on the terrace, his polished shoes gleaming against the flagstones, his grey eyes fixed on the golden tower. Its phoenix weather vane caught the light, a symbol of rebirth after the darkness of Miss Evelyn Warwick's crime. The revelation of her guilt, using a poisoned dart delivered through a pneumatic tube to silence Sir Reginald's memoir, had brought justice. But Poirot's little grey cells remained restless. There were echoes in this case, threads of the past that demanded attention before he could depart the estate. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face weary but satisfied, joined Poirot on the terrace, a cup of tea in hand. "You've done it again, Poirot," he said, slurping noisily. "Warwick's locked up, confession signed, and the courts'll handle the rest. But you've got that look. Something's still nagging you, isn't it?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "Mon ami, the case is solved, oui, but the heart of Ashbourne Hall beats with secrets yet untold. The memoir is ashes, but its shadows linger. Hercule Poirot does not leave a puzzle half-finished." The household, though relieved, bore the weight of recent events. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, now the estate's heiress, moved through the drawing-room with a quieter grace, her auburn hair catching the sunlight as she planned the estate's future. Clara Ashbourne, her notebook of botanical sketches tucked under her arm, seemed lighter, her grey eyes softened by the prospect of her engagement. Edward Langley, his boyish charm tempered by resolve, had vowed to reform his gambling ways. Dr. Victor Hargrove, cleared of suspicion, carried his medical bag with renewed purpose. Mr. Grayson the butler maintained his stoic vigil, though his weathered face held a trace of gratitude toward Poirot. Poirot requested a final meeting in the library, its oak-panelled walls and leather-bound tomes a fitting backdrop for reflection. The household gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice warm yet precise, "the serpent in the garden has been caught, but Sir Reginald's death has stirred echoes of the past. We must address them to bring true peace to Ashbourne Hall." He produced a small notebook, its pages filled with his meticulous notes. Mademoiselle Warwick's crime was driven by fear of exposure. Sir Reginald's memoir, burned to ashes, would have revealed her as a spy from his diplomatic days in Constantinople. But why was this memoir written now? What prompted Sir Reginald to revisit old wounds? Lady Beatrice spoke first, her voice soft. "Reginald was nostalgic in his later years, monsieur. He spoke often of his time abroad, of secrets kept for king and country. Perhaps he felt the need to confess." Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. "A confession, oui, but also a warning. His letter to me, 'Beware the serpent in the garden,' suggested he knew danger was near. Let us explore the past to understand the present." He turned to Grayson, whose knowledge of the estate was unparalleled. "Monsieur Grayson, you served Sir Reginald for decades. Did he speak of Constantinople, of betrayals long buried?" Grayson's weathered hands clasped tightly. "He did, sir, in private moments. He mentioned a scandal, a diplomat betrayed by a trusted aide, secrets sold to a rival power. He never named names, but he said the truth would come out, one way or another." Poirot's gaze shifted to Dr. Hargrove, whose past indiscretions had surfaced during the investigation. "Doctor, your dismissal from the medical register for unethical experiments. Was this known to Sir Reginald before he hired you?" Hargrove's gaunt face tightened. "He knew, monsieur. He gave me a chance to redeem myself. But he grew suspicious recently, questioning my methods. I swear I had no part in his death." Poirot's little grey cells hummed. He recalled the maid's account of an argument between Hargrove and Sir Reginald about a betrayal. Was it linked to the memoir, or something else? He requested Sir Reginald's remaining papers, stored in the safe. Lady Beatrice, with Grayson's assistance, retrieved a bundle of letters, their wax seals cracked but intact. Among them was a faded telegram from 1899, sent from Constantinople, addressed to Sir Reginald. It read, "Trust betrayed. Serpent strikes. Guard your heart." The signature was illegible, but the parallels to Sir Reginald's letter to Poirot were striking. "The serpent," Poirot murmured. "It is a motif, a warning from decades past." He questioned Clara, whose botanical expertise had been exploited by Warwick. "Mademoiselle, your nightshade plants were used to kill your father." Did you ever share your research with Mademoiselle Warwick? Clara's grey eyes flashed. Never intentionally, monsieur. But she visited the greenhouse often, asking about my work. I thought she was curious, not dangerous. Her voice faltered, guilt evident. Poirot turned to Edward, whose debts had made him a suspect. Monsieur Langley, your forgery of Sir Reginald's signature, was it only for money, or did you fear his memoir exposing something more? Edward flushed, his cufflinks still. Just the money, I swear. Uncle Reginald knew about my debts, but he never mentioned a memoir. I'd have owned up if he'd confronted me. Lady Beatrice, her handkerchief twisted, added, Reginald was protective, monsieur. He kept secrets to shield us, even from ourselves. Perhaps he suspected Evelyn's past, but hoped to resolve it quietly. Poirot paced, piecing together the echoes. The memoir's destruction suggested Warwick acted alone, but Sir Reginald's suspicions hinted at a broader web. He returned to the Golden Tower, climbing the spiral staircase to the study. The vent, its grille now removed, lay exposed, a testament to Warwick's cunning. Poirot examined the desk, finding a hidden drawer missed in earlier searches. Inside was a single photograph, a younger Sir Reginald in Constantinople, standing beside a woman with mousy brown hair and spectacles. Evelyn Warwick, decades younger. The photograph was a revelation. Warwick had not been a mere secretary, but a figure from Sir Reginald's diplomatic past, her role as a spy intertwined with his career. The memoir, Poirot deduced, was not just a confession but a reckoning, meant to expose her and perhaps others. He tested the pneumatic tube again, sending a paper dart from the basement to the study. Its precision confirmed the method, but the photograph confirmed the motive. Poirot gathered the household once more, presenting the photograph. Mes amis, Mademoiselle Warwick was no stranger to Sir Reginald. She was his aide in Constantinople, trusted until she betrayed him. The memoir was his attempt to right that wrong, but she struck first, using the tube to deliver death. Lady Beatrice gasped. She was with him all those years ago. How did we not know? Poirot's eyes softened. Secrets, madame, are the currency of diplomacy. Sir Reginald kept hers, hoping to protect his family, but his warning to me proved his foresight. Clara, her voice steady, asked, What now, monsieur? The estate, the family, how do we move forward? Poirot smiled. You rebuild, mademoiselle. The truth has cleansed the garden. Madame Beatrice will steward the estate. Mademoiselle Clara will pursue her love. Monsieur Langley will reform, and Dr. Hargrove will serve with honour. Monsieur Grayson will guard this house, as always. The household nodded, their faces reflecting a shared resolve. Japp, preparing to depart, clapped Poirot's shoulder. You've tied up every loose end, Poirot. Scotland Yard could use you full-time. Poirot chuckled. Non, mon ami. The little grey cells, they thrive on puzzles, not paperwork. As the household dispersed, Poirot lingered in the study, the moonlight filtering through the leaded window. The phoenix weather vane gleamed, a symbol of Ashbourne Hall's rebirth. The photograph, the vent, the telegram, all echoes of a past now laid to rest. He smoothed his moustache, his heart light with the satisfaction of a mystery fully. Chapter 9. Shadows of Renewal. The dawn broke over Ashbourne Hall with a clarity that seemed to banish the last vestiges of fog, the honey-coloured stone of the estate glowing warmly under a pale October sun. Hercule Poirot stood in the rose garden, his polished shoes damp with dew, his grey eyes fixed on the Golden Tower. Its phoenix weather vane spun gently in the breeze, a symbol of rebirth after the dark revelation of Miss Evelyn Warwick's crime. The poisoned dart, delivered through a hidden, pneumatic tube had silenced Sir Reginald Ashbourne to protect Warwick's past as a spy. Yet Poirot's little grey cells remained alert, sensing that the estate's healing required more than a confession. It demanded closure for all its inhabitants. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face creased with the satisfaction of a case closed, joined Poirot in the garden, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Warwick's on her way to London for trial, Poirot," he said, puffing on a cigarette. "The dart, the perfume, your clever tube trick, it's all sewn up, but you're still here, sniffing about. What's left to find?" Poirot's moustache twitched as he adjusted his scarf. "Mon ami, the crime is solved, oui, but the heart of Ashbourne Hall bears scars. There are questions yet unanswered, small threads that must be tied to ensure peace. Hercule Poirot does not leave a tapestry frayed." The household, though relieved by Warwick's arrest, moved with a cautious optimism. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, now tasked with stewarding the estate, was planning a memorial for Sir Reginald, her auburn hair catching the sunlight as she consulted with architects in the drawing-room. Clara Ashbourne, her botanical notebook tucked under her arm, spoke of her upcoming wedding with a quiet joy, her grey eyes no longer shadowed by suspicion. Edward Langley, his boyish charm tempered by resolve, was arranging to settle his debts, his cufflinks still but his hands busy with ledgers. Dr. Victor Hargrove, his medical bag a symbol of renewed purpose, tended to a groundskeeper's sprained ankle with care. Mr. Grayson, the butler, maintained his vigilant rounds, his weathered face softened by a rare smile. Poirot requested a final gathering in the library, its oak-panelled walls and towering bookshelves a sanctuary of knowledge and truth. The household assembled, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and hope. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice warm yet deliberate, "the serpent has been caught, and justice is served. But Sir Reginald's death has stirred ripples in this house. Questions of trust, of legacy, of secrets half buried. Today we lay them to rest." He held up the faded telegram from Constantinople, found in Sir Reginald's safe, its words, "Trust betrayed. Serpent strikes. Guard your heart," echoing the letter to Poirot. This message from 1899 warned Sir Reginald of betrayal, much like his own warning to me. It suggests a pattern, a cycle of deceit that Mademoiselle Warwick's crime completed, but there is more to uncover. Poirot turned to Lady Beatrice, whose emerald eyes met his with steady resolve. "Madame, you spoke of Sir Reginald's nostalgia for his diplomatic days. Did he ever mention a specific betrayal, a name tied to this telegram?" Lady Beatrice's handkerchief twisted in her hands. "He spoke vaguely, monsieur, of a colleague who sold secrets, costing lives. He felt guilt for not acting sooner. I assumed it was a distant memory, not Evelyn." Her voice faltered, and Poirot noted the sincerity beneath her theatrical poise. He addressed Clara next, whose nightshade plants had been misused. "Mademoiselle, your greenhouse was a tool in the killer's hands. Did Sir Reginald ever discuss his past with you? Perhaps warning of old enemies?" Clara's fingers tightened on her notebook. "He was protective, monsieur, always warning me to trust carefully. He once mentioned a shadow from Constantinople, but said it was settled. I thought he meant a rival, not Evelyn." Her grey eyes held a flicker of guilt, as if she blamed herself for missing the signs. Edward, standing by the fireplace, spoke unprompted. "Uncle Reginald never shared his past with me, but he was strict about my debts, saying they'd make me vulnerable to serpents. I didn't listen." His voice was low, his reformation evident in his steady gaze. Dr. Hargrove, his dour demeanour softened, added, "Sir Reginald hired me despite my past, but he grew wary, asking about my old experiments. I thought he was testing my loyalty, not suspecting a spy in his midst." Grayson, ever the silent sentinel, nodded when Poirot turned to him. "Sir Reginald confided in me, sir, about a traitor in Constantinople. He said the past was catching up, but he trusted you, monsieur, to protect us." Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, weaving the threads together. The telegram, the memoir, the photograph of a young Warwick with Sir Reginald, all pointed to a betrayal decades old. He requested a final search of Warwick's office, where Japp's men found a hidden compartment in her desk. Inside was a charred fragment of the memoir, missed in her hasty burning. The fragment read, "The aid I trusted E.W. sold secrets to our enemies, costing lives. I spared her then, but now I must speak." Poirot held up the fragment, his voice rising. Mademoiselle Warwick was no mere secretary, but a figure from Sir Reginald's past, spared once for her betrayal. His memoir was his atonement, a reckoning for his silence. She killed to protect her secret, but the truth, it always finds a way. The household absorbed this, their faces reflecting a shared understanding. Lady Beatrice spoke, her voice firm. "Reginald wanted to protect us, even at the cost of his life. I'll ensure his manuscripts are preserved, perhaps open a library in his name." Clara nodded. "I'll dedicate my research to him, using my plants for healing, not harm." Her engagement, now free of her father's will, was a beacon of hope. Edward, his hands steady, added, "I'm selling my London flat to clear my debts. Uncle Reginald's trust won't be wasted." Hargrove, clutching his medical bag, said, "I'll serve this family with honesty, proving Sir Reginald's faith in me." Grayson bowed slightly. "The house will stand strong, sir, thanks to you." Poirot smiled, his heart warmed by their resolve. "The past is a shadow, mes amis, but you have chosen the light. Ashbourne Hall will thrive, its legacy secure." He returned to the Golden Tower, climbing to the study one last time. The vent, now sealed, was a silent reminder of Warwick's cunning. The manuscripts gleamed on their shelves, a testament to Sir Reginald's passion. Poirot examined the desk, finding a final note tucked beneath a blotter, written in Sir Reginald's hand. "To Poirot, my friend, guard my family." It was a charge Poirot had fulfilled. Japp, preparing to depart, clapped Poirot's shoulder. "You've not just solved a murder, Poirot, but mended a family. Scotland Yard owes you a pint." Poirot chuckled. "No, mon ami, a cup of tisane will suffice. The little grey cells, they are content." As dusk settled, Poirot walked the gardens, the roses aglow in the fading light. The Golden Tower stood tall, its phoenix weather vane a symbol of renewal. The echoes of Constantinople, of betrayal and redemption, were silenced. Poirot adjusted his scarf, his mind at peace, ready for the next puzzle the world would offer. Chapter 10. A New Dawn. The October sun rose over Ashbourne Hall with a radiance that seemed to cleanse the last traces of sorrow, bathing the honey-coloured stone in a warm, golden light. Hercule Poirot stood on the terrace, his polished shoes catching the morning dew, his grey eyes surveying the estate with a quiet satisfaction. The Golden Tower, its phoenix weather vane gleaming against a clear sky, stood as a testament to the truth he had uncovered. Miss Evelyn Warwick's confession, her use of a poisoned dart delivered through a pneumatic tube to silence Sir Reginald's memoir, had brought justice, and the echoes of her betrayal in Constantinople had been laid to rest. Yet Poirot's little grey cells, ever vigilant, sought to ensure that Ashbourne Hall's future was as bright as this dawn. Inspector Japp, his bulldog face relaxed for the first time in days, joined Poirot on the terrace, a steaming cup of tea in hand. "Well, Poirot, you've outdone yourself," he said, his voice gruff but warm. "Warwick's in London, awaiting trial, and the evidence, dart, perfume, confession, is ironclad. The household's singing your praises. But you're still here, looking thoughtful. What's left?" Poirot's moustache twitched as he adjusted his scarf. "Mon ami, the crime is solved, the serpent caught, but the heart of Ashbourne Hall beats with hope, and Hercule Poirot wishes to see it flourish. There is one final task, to ensure the legacy of Sir Reginald endures." The household, transformed by the resolution of the mystery, moved with a newfound purpose. Lady Beatrice Ashbourne, now the steward of the estate, was in the drawing-room, her auburn hair glowing as she reviewed plans for a memorial library to house Sir Reginald's manuscripts. Clara Ashbourne, her botanical notebook tucked away, was radiant with plans for her wedding, her grey eyes free of their former wariness. Edward Langley, his boyish charm tempered by determination, was poring over financial records, committed to clearing his debts. Dr. Victor Hargrove, his medical bag a symbol of redemption, tended to the staff with renewed dedication. Mr. Grayson, the butler, moved through the halls with his usual stoicism, but his weathered face held a quiet pride in the estate's revival. Poirot requested a final gathering in the library, its oak-panelled walls and towering bookshelves a fitting stage for closure. The household assembled, their faces reflecting gratitude and resolve. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice warm and deliberate, "the tragedy of Sir Reginald Ashbourne has been resolved, and the serpent in the garden, Mademoiselle Warwick, has been brought to justice. Yet this house, it is more than stone and secrets. It is a legacy, and today we ensure it shines." He held up the photograph found in the study, showing a young Sir Reginald beside Evelyn Warwick in Constantinople. "This image, mes amis, is a reminder of the past's weight. Sir Reginald spared Mademoiselle Warwick once, hoping for her redemption, but her betrayal cost him his life. His memoir, though burned, was his attempt to right that wrong. We honour him by building a future free of such shadows." Lady Beatrice, her emerald eyes steady, spoke first. "Monsieur Poirot, you've given us clarity. I'm turning part of the East Wing into a library for Reginald's manuscripts, open to scholars. His passion will live on." She gestured to a sketch on the table, showing shelves filled with ancient tomes, a tribute to her late husband's legacy. Clara stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "I'm dedicating my botanical research to Father, using my plants to develop medicines. My wedding will be here, in the gardens, a celebration of life." Her grey eyes sparkled, and Poirot noted the absence of her former reserve. Edward, his hands steady, added, "I've sold my London flat, monsieur. The proceeds will clear my debts, and I'll work here, helping Aunt Beatrice manage the estate. No more gambling." His boyish grin was earnest, a promise kept. Dr. Hargrove, his dour demeanour gone, nodded. "I've been given a second chance, monsieur. I'll serve this family with integrity, proving Sir Reginald's trust wasn't misplaced." His medical bag, once a source of suspicion, now gleamed with purpose. Grayson, ever the sentinel, bowed slightly. "The house is whole again, sir, thanks to you. Sir Reginald's spirit rests easy." Poirot's heart warmed at their words. "The human spirit, mes amis, it rises from tragedy. You have chosen to honour Sir Reginald by forging a path of light. But there is one final piece to this puzzle." He produced a small leather-bound journal, found in Sir Reginald's study desk, overlooked in earlier searches. Its pages, written in his elegant script, detailed his hopes for Ashbourne Hall, a sanctuary for knowledge, a home for his family, a place of redemption. The final entry, dated the night before his death, read, "To Poirot, my friend, guard my legacy. The serpent may strike, but the phoenix will rise." Poirot's voice softened. Sir Reginald foresaw danger, yet he trusted in renewal. This journal, mes amis, is his true will, not of money, but of vision. He wished for this estate to be a beacon, and you, each of you, are its keepers. Lady Beatrice took the journal, her fingers tracing the cover. "We'll make it so, monsieur. The library, the gardens, the family, it will all reflect his dream." Poirot nodded, his grey eyes gleaming. "Then my work here is complete. The serpent is gone, the phoenix rises, and Ashbourne Hall is reborn." He returned to the Golden Tower one last time, climbing the spiral staircase to the study. The vent, now sealed, was a silent reminder of Warwick's cunning. The manuscripts, untouched, glowed on their shelves, ready for Lady Beatrice's library. The bloodied paperweight, the spilled brandy, the cryptic letter, all were cleared away, leaving only the memory of a puzzle solved. Poirot stood at the window, gazing at the gardens below, where Clara's roses bloomed in defiance of the autumn chill. Japp, preparing to depart for London, joined him. "You've not just caught a killer, Poirot, but given this lot a fresh start. Scotland Yard could use a dozen of you." Poirot chuckled, smoothing his moustache. "Non, mon ami, one Poirot is sufficient. The little grey cells, they are content to serve where needed." As the household prepared for the day, Poirot observed their renewed energy. Maids bustled, planning the wedding decorations for Clara's ceremony. Groundskeepers tended the roses, their work a tribute to the estate's revival. Edward met with a solicitor, finalizing his debt repayment plan. Hargrove visited the village, offering free care to the staff's families. Grayson oversaw it all, his stoic presence a steady anchor. Poirot walked the gardens, the air crisp with the scent of roses and earth. The Golden Tower loomed above, its weather vane a phoenix soaring into the future. The journal's words echoed in his mind, "The phoenix will rise." Sir Reginald's vision was secure, his family united, his legacy preserved. The blonde hair, the jasmine perfume, the hidden vent, all were threads in a tapestry now complete. As noon approached, Poirot prepared to depart, his suitcase packed, his scarf neatly tied. Lady Beatrice met him at the entrance, her smile genuine. "Monsieur Poirot, you've given us more than justice. You've given us hope." Clara, beside her, added, "Come back for the wedding, monsieur. The roses will be in bloom." Edward, Hargrove, and Grayson echoed her invitation, their gratitude palpable. Poirot bowed, his heart light. "Hercule Poirot is honoured, mes amis. Should a puzzle arise, you know where shew."